online. I'll make the recordings available after class so that they can make reference to it. Today's class, we will be learning about strategy generation and selection. And this is a continuation of our class last week, wherein we considered the various or numerous types of strategies that can be adopted for a given circumstance that an organization may be trying to achieve, particularly in relation to its long-term imperatives. Just a minute. So we learned about the integration strategies, including vertical and horizontal. Then we also continued with the intensive strategies, in which we tackled some types such as market penetration strategy, market development strategy, and product development strategy. Thereafter, we also learned about diversification strategies, including related and unrelated diversification strategies, and also even discuss how and when they are adopted. And finally, we tackle defensive strategies, which are normally employed when the organization, having tried several other strategies, is still not able to achieve what it intends to achieve, and it is struggling to survive. And so they may embark on retrenchment, divestiture, or liquidation. For today's class, we will be looking at grand strategies and how they may recommend an appropriate strategy for an organization. So grand strategies. And so it's been themed as strategy generation and selection. And the broad focus of today's class will be centering on the meaning behind strategy generation and strategy selection. Thereafter, we also consider the stages that organizations normally go through when it comes to strategy formulation and implementation framework. Then we will consider the specific grand strategies, including SWOT analysis, space matrix, BCG matrix, and IE matrix. If you quite remember, I think 2 weeks ago, we learned about internal factor evaluation matrix and external factor evaluation matrix. When you put them together, it gives you an opportunity to not only scan the environment, but also select an appropriate strategy that can help you remedy the challenges that you may be facing. All right, so what is strategy generation? Strategy generation can be simply explained as the degree to which the various strategic options are unbundled for an organization to clarify which one will be more appropriate for its venture. So the degree to which we create awareness about the various strategic options that are available to an organization for them to also consider which one to select in order of their priority or in order of their possible contribution to organizational success, then we are dealing with strategy generation. And the strategy selection component of the team is the extent to which an organization, having conducted thorough appraisal of the various strategic options, get to opt for one of them. What are the various processes? Hello, are you able to hear me?
Yes, Doc.
Yes, Doc.
Yes.
Yes, Doc.
Uh-huh.
Everything is there.
So a number of activities or processes inform the final outcome of strategy generation and selection. And just as we did for the creation of mission and vision statements, the same philosophy guides the generation and selection of strategies for a given organization, especially if they are trying to formalize their activities, document it for posterity to make reference to, in order to understand the circumstances that inform the strategic option that were employed at a given point in time. So the first one is the expectation that as much as possible, a manageable set of alternative strategies must be unbundled. So as much as possible, it is not practical to go into the strategic generation and selection process with only one strategy in mind. However, the expectation is that there is the need for several of them to be generated, but these several strategies must be manageable. And the reason why it is supposed to be manageable is that if you end up generating endless or countless strategic options, then you may be crippled by what we call decision paralysis, which means that by the time you evaluate all these strategic options, your competitors will be far gone. And so the expectation is that you have to get alternative strategies to be evaluated for the most suitable one to be selected. But these alternative strategies should be manageable, but not countless. And the second one is the expectation for the cost benefit or the advantages and disadvantages of the manageable set of strategies to be ascertained. And the essence of conducting these cost benefits analysis of the strategies, the strategic options, is to do a risk assessment and more or less understand the potential risk or rewards that may be associated with each of the strategies. And that will be the basis for employing one strategy whilst keeping the rest in the freezer. Again, the pros and cons of the alternate strategies that have been generated will help the decision makers to have a comprehensive understanding of what each strategy entails, thereby taking an informed decision on the one that will be more formidable for the organization. And the third one involves the degree to which they need to identify and evaluate all these alternative strategies by involving the managers or employees that were earlier on consulted during the forger of the vision and mission statements, during the conduct of the environmental analysis. And this is important because when you engage the same brains or the same hand, it affords not only inclusive participation, but there is also an alignment and continuity in organizational proceedings. Because these are the individuals who already have a deep understanding of the reason why the company ended up with a particular mission and vision statements. The reason, the core strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that emerge out of the environmental analysis. So based on that, when there is the decision to be taken on the most appropriate strategy to be opted for among the various strategic options, then they will be in the right position to help make a good decision. Fourthly, it is also expected that alternative strategies that are proposed by the participants, including the managers and employees that have been engaged, should be considered and discussed in a series of meetings. And this is so because if everything is finalized within just one meeting and we have a lot of strategic options to consider, they may end up rushing decision, and that may have serious repercussions because some salient details that they should have ordinarily considered will be overlooked. So it is important that they stagger it and spread it to be catered for within a series of meetings. The proposed strategies are also expected to be listed in writing. And this is to provide documentation purposes or a point of reference. Whenever deliberations surrounding strategy generation and selection is concluded, the final outcome does not only serve the current crop of managers that are in place, but it also serves as a basis for future managers that will eventually emerge to make reference to. So by documenting it through writing and articulating the various considerations which resulted in the selection of the most suitable one out of the alternate strategies, it serves as a basis for posterity to understand the thought process which guided their predecessors, and that can also guide them at any given point in time where they may be taking over the mantle. And finally, when all feasible strategies identified by participants are given and understood, it is expected that the strategies should be ranked in order of their attractiveness. And what that point is seeking to say is that the basic reason why we do this cost-benefit analysis, document them, and deliberate on them a long series of meetings is to understand the pros and cons of each of the alternate strategies. And based on some of these assessments, it becomes easier for us to arrange them based on how they are likely to contribute to organizational success. Suppose they are adopted and implemented. And so once these are done, it becomes evident for all that are involved in the decision-making process to build consensus on the specific, that is, after the ranking has been done, they are able to demarcate which of the alternate strategies will be more favorable to organizational success and which ones may be less favorable. And to even know the alternate ones they may decide to employ as and when the environment also changes. So generically, these are the processes that guides and leads to the selection of strategies for an organization. But beyond this, there is a three-stage analytical framework which also guides the considerations which result in the formulation or the selection of a given strategy. And this was adopted from David and David 2017. According to them, it will be suicidal for one to adopt a given strategy, maybe an integration strategy, a defensive strategy, or an intensive strategy straight ahead without going through these analytical frameworks. And the argument of David and David is that it is important for the selection of the strategy to be predicated on environmental analysis information. And that is why in the first they characterize it as an input stage, wherein all the relevant information that are surrounding or found within the organization is first itemized, and contingent on that information, the right strategy is therefore matched with it. And to cement the input stage, they recommend a number of environmental analytical tools, such as external factor evaluation matrix, which is normally employed when we are doing external environmental scan, internal factor evaluation matrix, which is also employed whenever we are doing when we are doing internal analysis or assessment. And the information which is generated from these assessments will provide a comprehensive understanding of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that may become. It becomes clearer to know what constitutes the strategic options that the firm is supposed to employ. And that gives birth to the second stage, which is the matching stage. And within the matching stage, there are several grand strategic development options which can equally be used to match an organization with the challenges or opportunities that exist in the environment. And these include SWOT matrix, space matrix, BCG matrix, IE matrix, and grand strategy matrix. And the fundamental commonality across these specific grand strategies is that they all take into consideration the industry position of an organization, the market strength of the organization, their financial position, and also the internal strength or capabilities that they may be having. And based on the relevance of these parameters that I've mentioned, then they may recommend that between maybe integration and intensive strategies, it will be important for the firm to blend vertical integration and market penetration, or it is necessary for the firm to blend horizontal integration and product development strategy. So let me, as I was saying, the first component of the strategy formulation framework, as per David and David, is the input stage, which involves the degree to which the organization can comprehensively collect and organize relevant and vital information for the to inform the formulation of the strategy. And some of the key tools that are employed here, as we've learned already, include the external factor evaluation matrix, internal factor, and then competitive profile matrix. And these are just listings of a few of them. So once a thorough assessment has been conducted of the business environment via some of these tools, it furnishes the company with relevant information. And that information is therefore injected into the decision-making of the strategy selection, as far as the alternate ones that are on the table are concerned. And that gives way for the matching stage, which also involves the extent to which the relevant information that was generated through the input stage is now re-evaluated and aligned based on the evaluation to the various grand strategies that are also available. And depending on the content of the information and how it is also matched with some of these grand tools, it will suggest specific bundle of strategies or a specific strategy that can be utilized in pursuing an organization's long-term objectives. So the SWOT analysis is the most commonest one, which ends up providing, if you do the permutations and combinations of pairing, for instance, strength and weakness, strength and opportunities, strength and threats, weakness and opportunities in that order, you get several typologies in the matrix, for which each of them has implication for the strategy that is expected to be implemented. The same can be said about the strategic position and action evaluation matrix, also known as the SPACE matrix, the Boxing Consulting Group matrix, the IE matrix, and the Grand Strategy matrix. So we are going to take them in turns to appreciate what each of them entails. Normally, when we say SWOT matrix, it is simply a combination of insights from external factor evaluation matrix and internal factor evaluation matrix to demarcate the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that exist out there. Then SPACE matrix also seeks to determine an organization's strategic position. Also, the term is strategic position and action evaluatory matrix. So it seeks to determine the strategic posture that an organization is supposed to take after there has been an analysis of the organizations' competitive position, their financial strength, and their industry stability. And this will provide clearer guidance on whether a combination of horizontal and diversification strategy should be employed. Then the Boston Consulting Group matrix, which is a proprietary matrix that was named after the Boston Consulting firm. And it has become a go-to tool for strategy formulation and implementation, in the sense that it is able to categorize organizations, particularly those that have different portfolios or business units, to understand how they may characterize their products or services based on how they are all faring in the general market. And based on some of these assessments, it is also able to recommend how you will be able to support the not so doing well business units by drawing from the ones that are excelling. All right. So a detailed explanations of some of the tools that can be used at the input stage have already been done. So we are not going to waste much time on that. But for today, we'll be looking and taking closer look at the matching stage in order to appreciate the evaluation of each of these metrics during the matching stage and the recommendations that they can also profess for an organization to thrive and flourish in a cutting-through competitive environment. The first one to be considered is the SWOT matrix, also known as the Strength, Weakness, Opportunity, Threats matrix. And this is one of the sought-after matrix because of its simplicity and ease with which you are able to understand it. So as a strategic planning tool, the SWOT matrix generally helps managers to develop specific strategies that are based on an organization's internal strengths and weaknesses, as well as external opportunities and threats. And whenever you do the permutations or combinations of these strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, that's where you will now develop things. You are going to generate more or less like a table that will be pairing each of these teams, right? So whenever you cross-reference them, you will eventually get SO strategies, which means that the organization is trying to capitalize on its strengths to seize opportunities that exist out there. Then we also have WO strategies, wherein an attempt is made by the organization to correct its weaknesses to take advantage of opportunities that exist out there. Alternatively, there could also be a situation where the organization is currently implementing the ST strategies, in which the strengths of the organization is being catapulted to tackle possible threats which ensue in the external environment. And the last option that is likely to be generated from the SWOT matrix is the WT strategies, wherein the weaknesses of the organization is worked on in order to address plausible threats that the company faces. So the first one, which is the SO strategies, normally has an objective to use the internal strength of the organization to take an advantage of external opportunities. And this may find expression in a situation where the company is trying to leverage its brand or reputation. When a company decides to leverage its brand or reputation as a strategy to have an edge over rivals, then that would be a typical example of an SO strategy. In the sense that when a company has a strong brand, it may decide to, so the strong brand becomes the strength. It may decide to enter into a new market to increase its market share. And the penetration into the new market is what? An opportunity. So if an organization is drawing inspiration or drawing its strengths to seize an opportunity out there, as far as SWOT matrix is concerned, then it is using the first combination, which is strength, opportunity, strategies. Then there can also be the weakness, opportunity strategies, which is normally employed whenever an organization wants to, or organization is aware of its weakness and it wants to overcome this internal weakness. And so they take an advantage of an external opportunity that exists out there, which can be used in addressing such internal weakness. An example could be a situation where an organization sees a government stimulus package for training and development to upscale its labor aspects of the organization where there is a labor shortage. So the opportunity in this scenario would be the stimulus package by the government to provide free training and development programs for industries that are having scarce human resources in some important areas that may be required for the economy to boom. And if an organization is having individuals that also do not have such skill sets, then they can use weakness opportunity strategy to capitalize on such an opportunity. Strength threat strategies. The rationale behind strength threat strategies is that the organization in question is seeking to counteract its external threats by harnessing the strength of its internal resources. And that one is quite straightforward. And this can find example in a situation where an organization is trying to maybe enhance its product quality, enhancement of product quality. And how will this manifest? So when a given company is facing increased competition, increment in competition alone is a threat, right? Increment in competition is a threat. So if an organization is facing increased competition in its market where it is plying its trade, such an organization can use its maybe superior production capabilities to improve the quality of products or services. And that would end up differentiating the products and services of the company from what competitors already have in the market. And the superior production capabilities alone is a strength, which in this particular scenario will amount to a situation where an organization is relying on its strengths to counteract possible threats that exist out there. Then the last one, as far as the SWOT matrix is concerned, is the weakness threats strategies. And that is also contingent on the rationale that the organization may be seeking to minimize its internal weaknesses, and at the same time strive to avoid external threats. And this can be typified in a situation where, let's say a company is currently having high operational costs. A company is recording over a period of time high operational costs. And high operational costs in itself is a weakness, because it's an indication that there are either so many hands chasing few jobs, or there are a lot of wastages, and we are not using the right tools or machinery in the organization. So when a company is experiencing high operational costs, and at the same time also facing economic downturn as a result of maybe COVID or some policies by the government, and mind you, economic downturn too is a threat, which can even cripple one's business. Under such circumstance, the organization may decide to streamline its operations. So if you are streamlining your operations, it means you are trying to cut down all the redundancies that are in the system, which will eventually feed into your expenditure, so that you can survive in that tough economic conditions or economic environment that the company may be finding itself. And that might be a situation wherein an organization is utilizing the weakness threats strategies. And that may also find expression in a situation where a company decides to form alliance in challenging times. And under such a situation, when two or more companies realize that they are all lacking market reach, or they all don't have higher share of the market share, and which is a weakness in itself. And they are also facing aggressive competition out there, which is equally a threat. And such firms decide to either merge or form some sort of alliance in order to not only improve their market reach, but also face the stiff competition that they may be facing. That will constitute a weakness threat strategy as far as the SWOT matrix is concerned. Now, detailed explanations of some of these permutations are available for you to consider later on when you are doing your readings. Okay. Then next to be considered is the space matrix. And the space matrix originates from the S stands for strategic, P position, then the A action, then the E here is evaluation matrix. So the space matrix. Space matrix is also one of the strategy formulation and evaluation tools that assist organizations to know the combinations of specific strategies that they can utilize given their environmental conditions. And it does this by, first of all, evaluating the industry position that a given organization commands, and also the various options that are before the organization. It does this by breaking the entire business environment and the competitive nature of the environment into 4 main quadrants. And depending on the part of the quadrant where you fall in, it will recommend whether you are supposed to be using an aggressive strategy, you are supposed to be using an intensive strategy, a defensive strategy, or a competitive or diversification strategy. So what happens is that it works by plotting the scores of an organization as far as their financial position is concerned, competitive position is concerned, stability position and industry position are equally concerned on a graph, on what we call a Cartesian plane. So a Cartesian plane is the X and Y axis graph that we normally use whenever we are trying to plot some coordinates.
Dog.
Right? Yeah, hello.
Sir.
Yes, hello.
Yeah, sir. I had a question.
Yeah, hello.
I have a question.
Okay, go on.
On the previous the SWOT strategies that you
The
were
slides.
doing. Yes, the previous one.
Okay, go on.
So my question was, can a factor be both a weakness and a threat at the same time? Like when we were doing was it the WT? The weakness and the threat. Yes.
No, normally weaknesses are factors or forces that are internally originated, and threats are externally originated. So it is not possible for them to fall in the same continuum. Okay. So the space matrix is normally plotted on the X and Y graph, or what has now become known as Cartesian plane, which means you will have, let me bring out my pen crowd. On say X and Y as it's something like this. Oh, something like this. Then you have Y here, negative Y. Then you have negative X here. Then you have X also here. Okay. And just as we used to do by plotting coordinates on the graph, at any point in time, the financial position, competitive position, industry position, and stability position of the organization is also plotted based on how they have been assessed for a given organization. And depending on the part of these 4 quadrants that they will fall, it will also profess some specific types or categories of strategies that will be more reliable for the organization to flourish. And normally, the ratings or the evaluations of the internal dimensions, which include the financial position and that of competitive position, is done such that the ratings are done such that they are normally, so the financial position is rated on a scale of 1 to 7. Competitive position on a scale of -1 to -7. Just a minute, oh. My pen is misbehaving here. I wanted to plot them on it. Okay, so F, P, then C, P, okay. Then industry position to IP and stability position SP. Okay. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, yes, please.
I'm trying to scribble something, but my pen is not helping me well. Okay, the point I'm trying to say is that these internal dimensions and external dimensions of the space matrix, some of them are rated negatively, whilst others are rated positively. So if you take the financial position, for instance, it is rated positively based on metrics such as whether, normally when we say the financial position of an organization, we are thinking about things like whether the company is getting returns on their investments, their cash flow. In fact, more financial, so you are supposed to be telling me more. Their net profit margin and all those things. So if they are scoring high between 1 and 7, like if the score is approaching 7, then it means that the financial position of the firm is good. Whereas if it is going towards the point of origin, somewhere here, then the financial position will be bad. And it could be as a result of any of the metrics or indicators that I mentioned. Yeah, the returns that they are getting for their investment is very, very bad. Their net profit margin too is also not favorable and all that. If you take competitive position also seeks to check basically the competitive strength of the firm against other rivals that are also in the same community of practice. And some of the key indicators that we can use to determine the competitive strength of a firm is the market share that they command. So if you are comparing MTN and AT and all that, so MTN has about 54% of the market share. And that will be a competitive strength, right? And it could also be the quality of their products, their ability to the loyalty that they derive from customers. All those things are indicators of competitive strength. And mind you, this one is scored ranging from -1 to -7. -1 to -7. So the closer you are to the point of origin, then the more, the higher the strength of that particular indicator. Let me take it again. For competitive position, I would say it is ranging from I said -1 to -7. And the closer you are to the point of origin, which is somewhere here, then it showcases that your competitive position is stronger. So who can tell me between if a company is rated -7 compared to a company rated -1, which one has a weaker competitive strength or a weaker competitive position, and why? Based on what I just said.
So I think the one with the -7 is weaker, and the one with -1 is stronger because the -1 is closer to the origin.
Precisely so. In fact, if it escalates crana in some simulations, it may even drift towards this angle. Okay. Then there is also stability position. Stability position is also rated ranging from -1 to 7, which is just like the competitive position. So the closer you are to the point of origin, then the stronger the stability position of a firm. And what does stability position seek to communicate? It evaluates the degree to which an organization is stable in the external environment. How stable is the firm in the external environment? And so it takes into consideration some of the key external forces or factors, such as economic stability of the environment where you are applying your trade, the firm's ability to adjust to technological changes, the firm's ability to adapt to regulatory environment that surrounds its operations, issues about inflation rate, especially it also affects your pricing and your services. Then there is industry position, which also seeks to assess the attractiveness, or if you like, the strength of an organization in a particular industry. To what extent is a particular firm very much attractive compared to rivals? So some of the metrics that can be used to assess a firm's industry position or their industry attractiveness is the growth potential of the company, the profit potential of the company. If an organization is tagged as having higher growth potential or higher profit potential, that alone will incentivize investors to offload some of their funds to such company, because the expectation is that they will be able to gain back their profits, as opposed to a situation where the growth potential or the profit potential of a firm is very weak. So the higher a company score for these industry positions, particularly if it is far away from the point of origin, then it sends a signal that indeed the firm has huge potential in the future. And so it becomes very much attractive to potential investors. And as Michael Porter said, when firms, in an environment where there is keen competition and industry profitability is also guaranteed, then that alone will attract a lot of new entrants into the industry, affecting the market profit that hitherto were enjoyed by existing firms. And so under such circumstances, firms will do all that they can in order to protect their interests and their profits. Depending on, so these are some of the forces or factors that may inform the rating of a particular aspect of the quadrant as being weak or strong. And those were the things I was making reference to as the metrics or the indicators. And this is how the ratings are also done. So for financial position and competitive position, as well as stability position and industry position, you get to rate them based on how objectively they are manifesting, how they are manifesting in the environment. And it is this objective assessment that will give you the coordinates to go and plot on the graph or on the Cartesian plane, indicating that if you manipulate the evaluations of the 4 environmental conditions, then you are likely to go and plot something that will also be misleading the organization as far as the suitable strategy to be considered is concerned. And the point I'm making is that depending on the ratings that will be conducted for industry position, industry position, financial position, stability position, and competitive position, you will end up having graphs like this. And any quadrant that you fall within, as far as the plotting of the coordinates is concerned, will also recommend whether you are supposed to use integrative strategies, aggressive strategies, defensive strategies, or diversification strategies, right? And that is why I was saying, as much as possible, you have to be very objective so that you end up plotting the code, you end up getting the right scores to be plotted at the right quadrant to also inform the choice of strategy that will be relevant for your peculiar business. And these are the typologies of strategies that can be adopted depending on the quadrants that you fall within. The types of strategies that you can adopt depending on the quadrant that you fall within. The running theme is that unless the company is struggling to break even, which will require them to employ some form of defensive strategies, at any given point in time, organizations can embark on intensive strategies because the level of competition out there is always constant. And that explains why you have all the quadrants having semblance of intensive strategies embedded in it. And by intensive, I mean the markets, the marketing penetration, market development, product development, right? However, if you are finding yourself in a situation where the financial position of the firm is good, but the stability position of the firm is not so good, then it wouldn't be appropriate to be entertaining an unrelated diversification strategy. Because that means that you are already in an environment that is where you are not stable. So it wouldn't be appropriate for you to be experimenting with some additional product lines or product units, which you may not have a good track record on. Other than that, when your financial position is solid and your industry position is also solid, you can employ all sorts of strategies, apart from the defensive strategies, because you are at your peak of operation, and which means all the hitherto strategies that you adopted will still yield fruitful results for you. So depending on the circumstances you are facing, then you can employ it. The same applies to a situation where your industry position is solid and your stability position too is solid. Under such circumstance, and when I say your stability position is solid, it means you are closer to the point of origin here. That means that you are doing something right, and for that reason, you may also go ahead with all the batteries of strategies to seize the opportunities that exist out there, whilst capitalizing on your strengths that also exist in there. So that is the space matrix. Then there's also the BCG matrix, which, as I indicated earlier on, is a proprietary matrix, but proprietary matrix means that it was named after the Boston Consulting Group as a consulting firm for most of the thriving firms in the developed economies. But over time, the strategy that they were recommending and professing for organizations to flourish became the cornerstone for excellence. And that is why it's now being taught as one of the options that can be utilized to help a firm thrive in a cutting-through competitive environment. When do we use Boston Consulting Group metrics? It is normally employed when an organization has an organization competes in different. Okay, so when the organization has several product lines or different business divisions, and answer what they say, business portfolios. And these different business portfolios or divisions also operate in different or separate industries. Under such circumstance, it becomes necessary with how it, because whereas one strategy may be flourishing and giving favorable results in one industry for one of your divisions, that strategy may be yielding unfavorable results when it is replicated in another for another division in a different industry altogether. And the Boston Consulting Group matrix provides avenue for a firm to always rely on different strategies for their different divisions or product lines that are competing in the industry. So what it does is that it analyzes the various divisions or product lines of the organization. And that analysis helps in the allocation or the prioritization of resources, as well as determining the strategic priorities that the parent company can be drawing from, which is, by extension, a way of providing different business units with different strategies for different markets at the same time. And it allows them to simultaneously monitor how each of the different divisions or product lines are faring, given the different strategic options that are being implemented over there. And whenever one of them is struggling, they can easily move resources from one of the branches of the parent company to supplement or cushion it. So the BCG matrix ends up, yes, hello.
Doc, sorry. I have a question. I wanted to ask a question.
Okay.
Doc, I want to ask you, if you have a product or a service in the market, and you want to increase, which is not saturated, you want to increase your market share, right? But yet you lack the financial mass to do that. What's the best strategy to use? Sorry if I draw you back. Sorry.
It's my end, but I can't hear anything now. Class, are you able to hear Emmanuel? Hello, Emmanuel, can you hear me?
Yes, some of us said.
Yes, please, we hear.
Okay, please repeat the question again.
I said you have a product or a service in the market which is not saturated.
Yeah.
Which is not saturated.
Okay.
And you want to increase your market share. Yet you lack the financial muscle to do that. In this case, what is the best strategy to use?
Okay, so you have you have a product or a service in a saturated environment.
Which is not saturated. Which is an unsaturated environment.
Okay, which is not saturated. But financially, you are cash strapped.
Financially, like them, you're cash strapped. Yeah.
Which one will be more appropriate?
So which strategy? Yeah, which strategy would be more appropriate to increase your market share?
Okay, so you may go in for any of the intensive strategies. Because if it's not saturated, then you can see that opportunity to penetrate the market and become the most dominant force in that particular industry. So that will mean that and assuming you also have some strength in your production capacity, and so you are able to come out with valuable services or products. That is where you have to champion, so that whatever you bring and saturate the market with, as far as your product is concerned, it will draw people to the quality of service or product that you are churning out. So market penetration strategy will be relevant in that particular scenario.
Okay.
Yeah. The BCG matrix, although it provides room for several product lines or business divisions of the organization to be simultaneously managed with different strategies, it characterizes the various products or the various divisions of the organization into four main categories, depending on the maturity, the returns that the products or the division is bringing, and the relative market share that particular product or service is also commanded in the industry. In fact, it does these divisions by using the firm's industry's growth rates, the degree to which the firm is growing in a given industry or market, and the relative market position that the firm has. So if you are having a firm is having a low relative market share, a relative market position, but a high growth potential, that alone will also characterize a particular product or division for the organization. And depending on how they do these combinations and the alignments, they end up having 4 main types of products for an organization. And these include the type of division or product that they may characterize as the cash cows, the ones that they characterize as stars of the organization, the ones that is also demarcated as question mark products or services, and the ones that are more or less like dogs, or in our local Ghanaian context, we will say the black sheep of the organization. As I indicated earlier on, the BCG matrix is able to characterize the various product lines or business divisions of an organization based on the degree of relative market share position that the firm has, and also the extent of industry growth potential that the firm commands. So if you look at the Cartesian plane I have on my screen, the 4 quadrants, at the apex is the relative market share, which is scored on a scale of 0 to 1, with 1 indicating higher relative market share position and 0 indicating lower market share position. Conversely, the vertical line also assesses the firm's industry growth potential, which is equally scored on a scale of -20 to +20. And anything below 0 is an indication of low industry growth potential of the product. And anything above 0 means that that particular product or division has a higher growth rate as far as the industry potential is concerned. Depending on the assessment of the firm's division, product or service, and the various ones that may also be in different markets competing all together, the firm will be able to characterize these numerous portfolios as being the stars, the question marks, the cash cows, or the dogs. And the specific strategy that will accompany each of these product designations will be contingent on the label that they generate. So for the dogs, the expectation is normally for that particular division to be entertaining defensive strategies. But for cash cow stars simply is, when we say a particular division or a product is the star of the organization or is the star of the parent company, the interpretation is that that particular product commands high market growth rates. Oh, say star no top. So stars command high market growth rate potential and high relative market share, because the relative market share position here is also what? Up here, which means high. And that will mean that whenever the firm invests in that particular division, product, or service delivery, the entity will still grow. And research on stars labeled organizations suggests that they represent an organization's most opportune avenues to grow and generate more profits. The indication is that when you put in more money, you will be able to get a lot of returns. And that is why we characterize them as the stars of the company. So if you have different product lines or different divisions, and one of them is the stars, then it becomes necessary to prioritize it with a lot of investment decisions that should be driven by, that may be intended to not only penetrate into the market, but eventually understand that particular market through market development strategies, and also churn out products and services that will sustain the authority and command that that particular division is enjoying for the parent company. On the other hand, when a firm's division or product is characterized as cash cows, who can help me with the interpretation of cash cows based on how I interpreted that of the stars? When a firm's product or division is characterized as cash cows, what does that imply for the products or division? Who wants to try?
The division that brings them most of the cash flows. Right, the division that brings most of the cash flows into the business or into the organization. When they need cash,
division,
they look up to that division.
Okay. What else? Apart from the idea that they bring more cash to the parent company, so that means that division contributes a lot to the parent company. How can you interpret it based on the relative market share position and industry growth rates potential? Gilbert, I didn't hear what you said, and it's my network. Can anyone hear Gilbert?
Hello, Doc.
Gilbert, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. I wanted to add that the cash cow refers to a business unit within an organization that helps generate high stable cash without necessarily having to invest more.
Okay. And why is it so? Who can tell me why it is so? This one, I'm dealing with finance people, so you should be able to tell me more. Yeah, Gilbert.
Doc, your line is breaking now.
And so I'm asking, why are they able to generate a lot of returns for the company even when they make little investments? Why is this so? Oh, unfortunately, I'm not able to hear Gilbert. Okay, Sandra.
I believe they have, such companies have large market share already, so they don't need to invest more because they have the majority market share.
Okay. So if you look at...
Sir, please, can I add something?
Yes, go on.
Maybe it's also because they've built a very good goodwill.
Exactly. It is the unit or division of the organization that has been able to survive all the challenges and the test of time. So it is not like it is now a startup, but that may be the main root or the main backbone of the organization. And so they are, like Sandra said, they already have higher market share in that community of practice, and their growth potential is slowing down because they have been in the business for a very long time, and there are a lot of new entrants that are now competing with them in the same community of practice. But they are relying on their hard-earned reputation and the ability to retain their customers to have an edge over rivals. So depending on the efficiency and the returns that they are commanding over the possible options that are available to them also include product development strategies, which will help them improve upon the products or services which are being offered into the market, thereby this differentiating it from the generic ones that may be available, and that will help them command the respect and the prestige that comes with their enjoyment. Then that is also an indication that they don't have to be complacent about the relative market share position that they are currently enjoying, because it is obviously high, but their growth potential is not favorable. Under such circumstances, there is the need for them to now start contemplating about some diversification strategies, which may help them put their eggs perhaps in a different basket that may be having a high growth potential, or in a related diversification or basket, which is also having a lot of opportunities that are untapped. Now, if their industry growth rates start struggling, then other defensive strategies such as retrenchment may be endorsed to help them maintain that particular business unit in order for it to at least be able to break even and become more efficient, or become more resourceful. And if it gets to a pedestal where their sales growth rates, industry sales growth rates diminishes, then that division will no longer be rational or appropriate to be maintaining. And so avenues such as diversity becomes imperative. Then there is question marks divisions or products or services of an organization. Now, who can help interpret the question mark divisions? The question mark divisions, what will amount to a particular product line or division being characterized as the question marks of the parent company? Who wants to try?
Say,
Yeah, hello.
yeah, I think like question mark division will mean that the future of that division or that product or service is uncertain.
The future of that division or product line is uncertain. And why is it uncertain?
Probably they have low market share.
Precisely. That is why it is closer to So look at the ratings here. When the market share, you are closer to this particular quadrant, it is high. If you are closer here, then it is low. So the idea is that question mark divisions are the ones that have relatively low market share position, although their industry growth rate is perceived to be high. Their potential to grow is high, but that potential alone will not fetch you the income or the profit you are looking for at the end of the day. It is your ability to command huge percentage of the market share that will translate into profits. So whenever you have product lines or divisions which have growth potential, but irrespective of your initiatives, the market share that it is currently commanding is low, then they are characterized as question marks. Now, question marks typifies a business unit or product line that require significant investments. Significant investment because in order to increase your market share, it doesn't happen overnight. You will have to invest in the marketing research that you will do to understand the needs and the expectations of the targeted audience appropriately in order to also serve them very well. Thereafter, such information are expected to be integrated into the products that will be developed. Hence, product development strategy becomes imperative. So that at the end of the day, the question mark division will be able to churn out products or services that are of higher value, addressing the needs of the targeted audience and also differentiated from the prevailing ones. And that will help address some of the uncertainty prospects that comes with question marks. And by so doing, it will be able to turn some of the market share to the advantage of the company. And it may eventually convert it to becoming the stars of the organization. But if numerous market analytical research, market development, product development interventions is still not able to yield fruitful results, then it may suffice to say that the organization is entered into a different product line or division which it does not have the means to thrive. So divestiture may become imperative, wherein they may sell off that particular product line for the company to concentrate on the ones that are more thriving. And that is the recommendation of BCG matrix as far as question marks divisions are concerned. So in instances where the organization decides to invest more and they are able to get favorable returns, it ends up converting the question marks into stars. But in instances where it does not yield fruitful results, then they may eventually become the dogs of the organization, which may even require something beyond divestiture strategy. Then the characterization of dog divisions or product lines. Based on what has transpired now, who can interpret the dogs division for us using
Say,
relative market share and industry. Yes, hello.
say, so with the dogs, I think the market share will be low. The growth too will be low.
Very good. So with the divisions or product lines that are characterized as dogs of the parent company, the idea is that that particular division has a low market growth rate and at the same time a low relative market share potential. And that alone commands that the strategic options on the table is either the firm diversify or is liquidated and answer embark on some form of retrenchment just to rationalize the system. And this is important because such business units of a parent company, whilst all other business units may be thriving and getting returns for the company, they typically generate low or maybe negative cash flow. And that indicates that their prospects for growth is also limited. So in order to cut your losses under such circumstance, the Boston Consulting Group recommends that it becomes imperative to either diversify or reposition these business units. Okay, so
Say,
that is the BCG matrix. Hello.
say, I have a question.
Okay.
So my question is on the question marks. What if the division that has the low market
Market
position,
share.
market share, yes, is like the core of the business. Okay, so you cannot just cut it off and then you need a lot of money because some companies are capital intensive, that if you pour money into it, you might not realize the profits within a year. It might be within 3-4 years. And sometimes companies might not have the strength to be able to wait for that number of years to be able to realize profit. So when it happens to such a company, what would they do? It's like they have low market share, but in order for them to gain like some foot in the market share, they need to invest more money. They might not, investors might not be willing to invest money into a business that might not yield profits within the next 5 years. Like a wait around like that. So in that sense, what would they do? Because if that is their main or their core function of the company, they cannot just cut all the company off like that. I don't know. What will such company do?
Okay. So before you characterize your core business as a question mark, it must meet the parameters and the assessment criteria that the BCG matrix is first of all putting across. And once you label it as a question mark, then it's no longer becomes the core of your business, particularly if you have other options that have been labeled as stars and cash cows. It means that that particular business which hitherto or which you started with is no longer having its relevance and contribution to the parent company's success. So in the mind of the managers, they may see it as their core business. But from the perspective of a strategist, it has drifted away from their core business to something that is about collapsing. And the point you made that there is the need to inject some money into it so that it may be able to turn things around. If after injection money to to let your product stand out, to also embark on some sort of aggressive campaign, and you are still not getting fruitful results in terms of the profit you are generating from there and other product portfolios that you have, then you cannot characterize this as the core of your business. Because at the end of the day, the characterization of an aspect of your operations as a core should be the portion that is bringing a lot of revenue to the company, and not just the aspects where maybe you are pumping a lot of money into. So you have to analyze it carefully and not make a mistake in mislabeling some of them. Because if you mislabel a particular product division, it will also inform the strategies you adopt. And it will also affect the expectations that you are supposed to get in the interim basis. Any other question?
Yes, please, Doc.
Yes.
Mine is on the cash cow unit.
Okay.
In the study, we were made to believe that at this business unit, it's presumed that the organization have a larger market share and
Okay.
stable cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
And also, it's presumed that you'll be having a strong brand recognition and a loyal customer base.
Yeah.
So, with all these positives, why would the strategists be thinking of going on retrenchment?
As in the retrenchment here and the diversity here.
Yes, please.
Okay. So the idea is that the industry sales growth rates of the firm is medium to low. It's not high, it's medium to low. And if it is, when we say your industry sales growth rate is medium to low, it means you have reached a point of saturation wherein, despite the investments, innovations that you inject into your division, it is still not able to catapult you to achieve a higher growth rate potential. And that is where there is the need for you to start contemplating on other options that can help you enjoy the benefits that you are currently enjoying from your market share position, which is comfortably high. Again, so when your industry growth rate potential, particularly the scores, is closer to the -20, then that means that even the market share position that you are currently enjoying is not sustainable. It is something that in the foreseeable future, others are going to, it's a signal that in the foreseeable future, others are going to tap into it and start eating into your market share. So you don't have to sit down until you get to that point in time before you start thinking of what you can do to safeguard or remedy the situation. And that is why those parameters are available, such that if you get to a point where you have achieved all that there is for that particular product division, and it is no longer giving you the returns that you have budgeted for, then it will be more strategic to either divert. So in diversity, that is where you may be selling off that particular product division to a potential investor. You may decide to say that you are offloading some percentage of your shares to that particular person to also come in, and then by so doing, you are spreading off your risk. So those are the reasons why we intersperse the product diversification strategies with retrenchment and the diversity. That is, if you are heading towards the negatives here, as far as the sales growth rate is concerned. Any other? All right. So to actually appreciate some of these things, it is easier if you do it along the two parameters that are used in assessing the utility of a division, which is the relative market share position ranging from 1 to 0, and the relative industry sales growth rate also from -20 to 20. So that if you are able to put them into their right perspective, then you are also able to align them with the possible strategies that may be employed. To be honest with you, a lot of publications and recommendations currently abound when it comes to the BCG matrix, because it's been. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go.
We are with you.
Hello, can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So there are several advantages.
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, the network is misbehaving here. So I was saying there are several advantages that necessitate for the adoption of the BCG matrix, apart from the fact that it is a proprietary one that is highly recommended by companies that have benefited substantially from it. Its implementation is also characterized to be something that is straightforward, particularly if you are able to objectively evaluate your various product divisions and use the outcome to place them at the right portions of the 4 quadrants of the Cartesian plane. But its major flaw or challenge is that it is contingent on the assumption that the degree to which a firm will flourish in a competitive environment is contingent on their sales growth rate and market share that they are commanding in the external environment, which is quite a simplistic analysis of the environment. So under such circumstances, whenever unforeseen parameters such as supervening events like COVID-19, changes, anything that is not predicted, such as revised minimum capital requirement to enter or remain in a particular industry, are all introduced, and they are not catered for on the BCG matrix, it becomes very much difficult for their recommended strategies to yield fruitful results. But other than that, it still continues to be one of the sought after tools that can be used to determine when to use an integrative strategy or when to use a diversification strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Then the last to be considered is the IE matrix. I would say we've already done internal factor evaluation matrix and external factor evaluation matrix. And theoretically, unlike the internal factor evaluation matrix, which was driven by the resource-based view, which contended that we should pay much attention to the internal resources because organizations have much control over them, and that's when these resources are rare, non-immutable, and non-substitutable, it can guarantee competitive advantage. The external factor evaluation metric also prefers an alternate but compelling view, which contended that indeed external factors are more unpredictable, and it is only when we are able to get them under our purview that we can really predict the business environment and marshal out strategies that can face it squarely. For that reason, the internal external matrix is an analytical tool which evaluates the entire business environment to utilize the totality or the holistic information that will be derived to select an appropriate strategy for an organization. And it does so by also using the Cartesian plane. And it ends up breaking the entire business environment into three main regions, ranging from the grow and build region, the hold and maintain region, and the harvest and divest region. So we will, is it 30 minutes time, right?
Yes, sir.
Hello, can you hear me?
30
Yes,
minutes.
sir.
So
30
30 minutes
minutes.
time, why?
Okay, sir.
All right. divisions. One, so the bottled water division, is hence the alcoholic beverage division. And I also know one for their energy drink division. Which of the various matrices will you recommend for them to use in picking specific strategies for these different divisions that I've mentioned? Did you get the question?
So please
Okay,
repeat the
allow us
question.
So I'm saying Kasaprekon has three main divisions. One for the first business division is for their bottled water company. So that is into Awake mineral water for their alcoholic beverages, Alomo Gold and what have you. And then they also have another business division for their energy drinks, such as is it Storm Energy and Puma also. So I'm asking, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please, we can hear you, Doc.
So I am asking, which will you recommend to them in order specific strategies
Yeah, we
across?
keep losing you. So what you are saying is not coherent. It's drops at some point.
I'm saying Kasaprekon has three different business divisions. Said that one day you have heard it.
Yes, three
Yes.
different three divisions. Yes.
Baako for their
There's
mineral
a
water.
foreigner. There's a foreigner in the class.
There is a what?
The foreigner. So when you say back, he might not understand.
Sorry. So one is Awake Mineral Water, which is their bottling company, water bottling company. Another is also for the alcoholic beverages, such as Kasaprekon, such as Alumo bitters and all that. And then they also have another business division for energy drinks. So that normally comes out with the Storm Energy and the Puma Energy. Have you heard me so far, what I've said?
Yes.
Now I'm asking, what would be your recommendation to them as far as the various matrices we spoke about is concerned, which will inform the various strategies they may adopt for each of the divisions? If you want to try, just unmute and then you speak with me. Did you get the
Sir.
question? Yeah, Sandra.
Sir, I'm trying to get clarification. So are you
Okay.
saying that we should use the BCG matrix like for
I am
Kasaprekon?
asking which of the matrices we've touched on SWOT matrix, space matrix, BCG matrix, and we are now going to IE matrix. So which of them will you recommend to Kasapa and Kasapreko, and why? Is the question clear now? Hello?
Sir,
Yes, sir, we are with you.
Is the question clear now?
Yes.
yeah.
So I'm expecting feedback,
So,
but
sir,
no
me,
one
I'm
has
going to
even.
answer some small. At least I want to touch
Okay, go on.
to touch on something small. So, like Casapreco has been operating in Ghana for a very long time, so they have a very strong brand presence, right? And their Alomo
Okay.
test is widely known and very popular. So I think that they can use in my mind, I'm using the SWOT metrics, like they can use their strength to leverage on opportunities since they want to venture into the beverage aspects of uh, in the market right now. So I'm trying to say that because they have a strong brand, their brand is known, they can leverage on that and expand on their the beverage aspects that they want to do. They can use that into the Ghana markets because of their strong brand reputation that they have in Ghana.
Okay.
And then
All right.
because they also have their distribution, so they can distribute their beverages worldwide in Ghana, like in all the regions, because they have that kind of network already in distributing their alcoholic beverage, their alcoholic drinks. So whilst they are doing expanding into the beverage products, because of that distribution network they already have established,
Okay.
they can leverage on that, which is a strength, to be able to get hold of like a large market share on the beverage aspect.
Okay. All right. Well, unfortunately, your line was breaking at a point. So I heard you talk about their strength, which is the brand that they have created for themselves over a long period of time, and that they can leverage on it to sell other beverages. Is that what you were saying?
Yes, sir. And I talk about their
Okay.
distribution network as well.
Okay. So
Yeah.
their brand and their distribution network as their
Yeah.
strengths.
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's a good start. Ernest.
So, Dov, I'll go in for the space metrics.
Okay. Why the
In the
space
sense that,
metrics?
yes, borrowing Sandra's initial comments about Casaprep being in existence for a long time. So I'm going for the space metrics because for the internal dimension, their financial position is very strong. And also among its competitors, they stand tall.
Okay.
Also in the other external two dimension, in terms of the stability position, the existence of the company shows that they have been there for a long time. So for the stability position, they are strong. And also the industrial position, the IP, also make them stronger for the duration they have been to
Okay.
the business. So I'll choose the space metrics rather.
Okay. But thank you very much, Ernest. Did Sandra mention a specific matrix she's aligning her submission with?
Yes, she went
Yes,
for
I
the
use
She
the
SWOT.
said what?
SWOT. The SWOT.
The SWOT. Okay. I
Yes, so
didn't
I
get that
use.
part.
Oh, okay. So I said I'll
Sorry.
go for
Okay.
the SO, the strength and for
Strength
opportunities.
opportunity.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Okay. Any other? Yeah, Jane. Oh, I thought Jane was trying to say something. Now, who else? All right. What was the first thing I said as the reason why BCG matrix is very much relevant? What was the first thing I said about it? And now, when did I say we use BCG matrix? Yeah, MS.
Multi-divisional organization.
Okay, multi-divisional organization. And the example that I gave, does it amount to a multi-divisional organization?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so when you go and take your time, relax, and analyze it properly. Then next
Okay.
week when we meet, we will continue from there, okay? So let's continue. By this, I'm not saying we are done for the day. We are continuing from where we stopped. I think we got to the IE matrix. We were here, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, the IE matrix. The IE matrix tries to integrate both the internal factor evaluatory matrix and external factor evaluation matrix, particularly their weighted scores. That will indicate the coordinates that will indicate the position that a particular organization should assume and the respective interventions that it can also introduce in order to have an edge over rivals. So it is premised on the idea that it is not enough to rely on only information from the internal environment to select a suitable or a supposedly suitable strategy for an organization. And it is also not appropriate to rely on only external forces. Rather, a holistic assessment of the business environment is required to get a true picture of the health of an organization, given the forces in the business environment. And based on that, inform the appropriate strategy that they can use to survive in the business environment. So the IE matrix can be described as a strategic management tool that is used to analyze the various business units or products that an organization has and how these business units can equally be properly marketed for the flourishing of the organization. It does so by centering on the weighted average scores that will be derived from the external factor evaluation matrix and the internal factor evaluation matrix. And based on these weighted average scores, you get to plot it on a Cartesian plane. So, which means that the plotting on the Cartesian plane is determined by the total weighted average score for the internal factor evaluation matrix against that of the external factor evaluatory matrix. And that will help you know the sort of quadrant you are falling within. Three main, for them, they divide the Cartesian plane into three main regions. And depending on the region that an organization's business units or products is plotted, it informs the accommodating strategy that must accompany that particular business unit's initiative. And these include grow or build region, hold and maintain region, harvest or divest region. The names or the labelings of the regions explain the circumstances that an organization may be facing or may be enjoying at a given point in time. And so when they say grow or build region, that refers to the first region on the X and Y axis, which shows that the business units or the organization in question has recorded high to medium internal factor evaluation scores, and at the same time, high to medium external factor evaluation score. So if you are labeled under the grow or build region, it means that your scores for internal factor evaluation and external factor evaluation are all favorable, indicating your strengths and weaknesses are well checked, opportunities and threats are also well targeted. And the expectation is for the organization to focus on specific strategies that can help them expand or grow. And that is why we call it grow or build. Because your scores for the external factor, your scores for internal strengths and weaknesses are favorable, and that of opportunities and threats from the external environment is also favorable, which means there is more room for you to expand the current business that you are running and for you to enjoy more or superior growth. Then when you fall within the region which is labeled as hold and maintain, it comes with high level of caution, hold and maintain. That means that the score of the business unit or region, as far as internal factor evaluatory matrix, internal factor assessment is concerned, is medium, and that of external factor evaluation too is medium. So whenever you obtain medium scores for internal factor and external factor evaluation assessments, then the business unit or organization is plotted within the hold and build region, which is it falls within the diagonal of the Cartesian plane. The diagonal of the Cartesian plane. And what does that mean? It requires the company to be very much cautious so that they can maintain their current position, particularly if it is currently struggling to survive and maintain that equilibrium they are enjoying. Accordingly, there is the need for the company to focus on interventions that can help stabilize or protect their current market share. So even when you are investing in some market research or product development, this has to be done cautiously in order to sustain the current equilibrium of performance that is being enjoyed. Other than that, it may jettison the company down to the last quadrant, which is the harvest or divest region. Now, the harvest or divest region is that portion of the graph or the plane which suggests that the internal factor evaluation scores as well as external factor evaluation scores are low to medium. They are low to medium, indicating that there is the need for the company to minimize their investment, because if your current investments are contingent on low internal factor evaluatory outcome, so that will mean that your strengths are not adequate and your weakness are overshadowing it. There isn't much opportunities in the market for you to seize it, and the plausible threats that are currently engulfing the market too is quite enormous. For that reason, any form of investment that is being made over there needs to be done with high level of caution. And that is why they are even advocating for a minimization in investment whenever a firm finds itself in the harvest or divest region. And they even recommend divest in the sense that it will be important for the company to quickly exit that particular market if necessary, so that they can cut out their losses. In the interim, the recommendation is for them to focus on generating some cash flow, but that is for the short run. But the long run recommendation is for them to harvest as many of their investment that is there and quickly exit that particular industry. So normally when a firm has weak internal capabilities and is also operating in an unattractive market, then they are characterized to be within the harvest and divest region. Unlike a situation where a business unit is leveraging currently leveraging on its average performance in both internal and external dimensions of the environment. That one will mean that they are holding and maintaining. So this is a graphical illustration of the three quadrants that comes with the IE matrix. The challenge with this IE matrix is that it can only be plotted when, one, you have conducted the internal and external factor assessments. And once you are able to conduct it, then you plot the outcomes depending on the region it will take you to. You plot it appropriately based on the scores. So the scores for the internal factor weighted scores is normally within 4 and 1. And anything above 2 is an indication that it constitutes a strength of the organization. But anything below 2 is a constitution of a weakness of the organization. In fact, as I mentioned the other time, if you want to be more realistic, then best practice recommends that the weighted average should be somewhere 2.5 and not 2, because 2 is too modest. 2 is too modest. And the same can be said about external factor evaluatory matrix. Anytime you are getting a score below 2, it's an indication of a threat. But if you are getting somewhat closer to 4, then it's an opportunity that you can capitalize on. So if you do the mappings and you fall within the grow or build region, accompanying strategies that you may exploit include the integration strategies and the intensive strategies. Now, if you fall within the diagonal, which is the hold and maintain, its accompanying strategies are market penetration and product development, with the hope that such strategies will be able to intervene and help convert the weaknesses of the organization into its strengths, whilst capitalizing on the opportunity that exists out there. And in the same vein, facing the threats that may pop up with higher level of preparedness. And finally, when you find the plottings or the coordinates within the harvest or diverse region, that means that all your indicators are weak. They are all below the threshold of not 2.5, but 2.0, which is an indication that internally you are struggling and externally you are also facing stiff threats and competition out there, and you are not able to take care of the opportunities which may even pop up. And for that reason, there is the need to exit that particular industry where you may decide to retrench or divest. So that is the IE matrix. The IE matrix. Any question on the IE matrix?
Yeah, Doug.
Yeah.
Yes, in practice, how would you be able to come out with this scores?
The scores?
Yes.
Okay. To get the scores, you will first of all have to do the internal factor evaluation assessments by listing as many as possible all the forces or factors within your organization which has a role to play in your productivity or service delivery. And by enumerating them, you place weights on them. And these weights will demarcate the extent to which they are expected to contribute to your organizational success. The weightings are normally done ranging from 0 to 1, with 1 indicating higher utility of that particular internal force for your organizational success, and 0 indicating even when they are not there, you will still be able to thrive. After weighting them, then you continue with the ratings. And the ratings is where you will assess them in reality, how they are experienced based on your organization. So if you say, the reputation or the brand, the goodwill of the organization, how is that actually being experienced in your ability to maybe retain customers? Then that is also, the ratings are normally done ranging from a scale of 1 to 4, with 4 indicating higher efficacy and 1 indicating lower efficacy. Once you do these weightings and ratings, then you multiply them to get your weighted scores. These are the things that we were doing when we were doing the internal factor evaluation matrix and external factor evaluation matrix. So when you get to the IE matrix, you are just going to plot the weighted scores of the organization to the various quadrants where they will be directing you to. So assuming for the weighted score of internal factor evaluation matrix, you got 2.5. And the external score, you got 2.3. Then you'll be tracing them to see where they will meet. And you plot it. I don't know if your question is answered.
I'm okay.
All right. Well, and that also means that the thing is garbage in, garbage out. If you do it subjectively over there in terms of the evaluation, that will also mislead you over here to pick some interventions that may not necessarily be adequate for the current challenges you are confronting. So assuming because you want to boost the confidence of your investors, and so you end up getting some averages that will bring you somewhere here. But in actual fact, you are in the middle or you are somewhere in the last region. You can imagine the repercussions that you are going to face when you go ahead with the recommended strategies of the matrix. So as much as possible, the assessments and the plotting should be done objectively, devoid of any whims or caprices that may be fueling a particular motive in the organization. All right. So that brings us to the end of the numerous strategies that may be selected. So unlike what we learned last week, ranging from the integration strategies through the intensive and the diversification strategies, which based on your own assessment and experience and the information that is before you, you may decide to select one of them and champion. The grand matrix is such that it requires you to do some sort of not only projective test, but objective assessment to put the information into the right perspective, and based on how it will label the organization or its business units, it will also recommend a particular strategy to select. But the bottom line is that as much as possible and at all points in time, you, the human being, have to be in charge of all the decisions and actions that are going to be selected. And this is so because there are currently a lot of simulation tools that are there where if you put your projections into it, it will recommend something for you, just as the AI works, for you to follow. And it will even give you step-by-step ideas of how to implement it. If you don't understand your organizational environment very well, and if you also don't take into consideration the information that you are deriving into their right perspective, then you may end up selecting and going through a particular strategy, which will not give you the results that you intended to receive. So as at any point in time, the human component of you as a strategist must be in charge. and not any additional tool that may be guiding you to make an efficient or effective decision. Okay, we are now going to look at how you can prepare the stage and carry through strategy implementation or strategy evaluation, which indicates that the bulk of our discourse this semester has centered on how you can forge your mission and vision statements, how you can develop long-term objectives, how you can analyze your environment, both internally and externally, and how you can use that information to tailor make a strategy or select one of the alternate strategies that will be relevant for the pursuit of your long-term objectives. So when it gets to strategy implementation, it's perceived to be one of the important milestones that can facilitate the achievement of the vision and mission of an organization. The focus of strategy implementation or strategy evaluation borders on the preparation of an organization to carry out a chosen strategy. So you are, like I mentioned earlier, you are setting the stage or preparing the grounds for the building to be erected. And that is the purview of strategy implementation. Now, both hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please. We are here. Yes.
Okay. A distinction can be made between strategy formulation and strategy implementation. Who can tell me some of these distinctions? How is strategy implementation different from strategy evaluation? Is there a difference?
Look, the question again, you were breaking at a point.
Oh, sorry. Hey, so that means all that I've been saying you did not hear.
Oh, it breaks, you come and you go. That's the challenge we are facing.
Sorry. So I'm asking, okay, you let me start again. So when we talk about strategy implementation and execution, there are two integral components of the strategic management process that brings into reality the strategy that we are trying to utilize to achieve the long-term objectives. And strictly speaking, the implementation component is sometimes explained as the opportunity or the preparatory work that is used to prepare an organization to carry out a chosen strategy. While the execution component emphasizes on the series of efforts that are marshaled out to bring the strategy into reality. But depending on the text you are reading, they are likely to treat strategy implementation as the degree to which you are able to bring your strategy into reality. So in all these circumstances, the intended effort is to carry out a given strategy. My question now is that what is the difference between strategy formulation and strategy implementation? Is there a difference?
Yes, there is.
Okay, so how different are they?
Okay, when we talk about the implementation, it refers to preparing the grounds and putting in structures for a strategy to take place, while the execution actually deals with the day-to-day routine performance that takes place.
Very good. What about strategy formulation?
Yeah, so it's like putting plans together and putting ideas together to strike. Let's say you are going to a war, you have to draw your plans on the table before you strike. So that's the formulation aspect.
Okay. Yes, Sandra.
Yeah, I was going to say that the difference between the two is the formulation, you are deciding what to do. The implementation, you are deciding on how to do it.
Exactly. The formulation, that is where you are contemplating the best strategy or the best means that you can use to achieve your objectives. Whilst the implementation is contemplating on how you can actually achieve your objectives, given the strategy that you have currently selected. Thank you very much. Now, what are some of the considerations that comes to mind when it comes to strategy implementation? What are some of the things that needs to be considered whenever we are about to implement a given strategy?
You consider the resources available.
The resources that are available. Why is it important for us to be checking and assessing the resources that is available? Why is it important?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, Ibrahima.
Yes. So you've talked about resource allocation. Yes, that one, I think it has to be ensuring adequate financial, human, and physical resources are available to support this strategy.
All right. Okay, so Ibrahima is saying we need to be considerate about our resources because it is these resources, the human, the physical, and the financial, and other typologies of resources that eventually are going to serve as our capabilities to pursue the given strategy that we want to implement. So resources is very much important. What other thing is required to be considered whenever it comes to strategy implementation?
I want to add training of personnel on how the strategy is going to be implemented.
Okay. And why is training very much important? So if, for instance, we decide not to train anybody, but we go ahead to implement the strategy at their blind side, what will happen? So who can explain why it is important for us to be concerned about the trainability of our workforce?
That way you are you are selling the idea and opening their minds and hearts to the fact that this is what you want to achieve. Then you get their buy-in. Through the training, you tend to explain how it is going to be implemented the disadvantages and advantages of the implementation. And change management is not an easy thing. So if you don't get the buy-in of of the people, it makes the implementation a bit of a challenge. So that's how come I believe the training is quite important to help with the strategy implementation.
Very good, very good. So the training will help dissuade any inconveniences that they may be having, which would have resulted in a resistance to the implementation or the changes that the strategy may eventually bring on board. Aside that, it is also going to equip them with the knowledge, skills, and abilities that they require to remain relevant for the strategy that is going to be implemented. Because if you are implementing a strategy that your workforce do not have what it takes to align their efforts and their motives with, then it is more or less like putting a cart before a horse and expecting it to flourish. So the training will equip them in that regard to be ready to hit the ground running. What else?
So I think there should be leadership and management support for the
There should be
implementation.
leadership and management support. So why is it important to have leaders and the managers in the organization supporting the implementation of the strategy?
Because they are really involved in the formulation of the strategy. So they've communicated it to the employees, and then they are committed. And then when they have challenges, they don't see any support from the leadership and the management. It's going to discourage them. So by their involvement, it's going to motivate the employees to know that, yeah, management are committed to doing this, so they will be highly involved in it.
Precisely. That will send a strong signal that management is in full support of the direction that the company is trying to endorse. And so that will also motivate all the general workforce to quickly align their efforts in that direction. Yes, what else? Yeah, Abdul.
There should be an implementation plan which outlines the processes and assign tasks and responsibilities, and also timelines for the process.
Very good. There should be an implementation plan, because without this implementation plan, things will be done haphazardly. When to begin what, how to begin it, why it is done that way, all have to be properly ironed out. And it is by so doing that there will be proper coordination along the implementation schedule for the right milestones to also be achieved in due course. Was it Bismarck? Someone was also trying to talk. Was that Bismarck?
Yeah, that is Oscar.
Oscar. Oscar,
Yeah.
go on.
You also have to consider what your rivals are already doing.
Okay, you need to be considering what your rivals are already doing, and why are you supposed to be considerate of it?
You know how to map your strategy to overcome theirs.
Okay. So what Oscar is saying here is also very important, because the business environment is constantly evolving, and the strategic management is also expected to be an iterative process. So the mere fact that you have identified one suitable strategy of the varied alternatives that are there for the implementation, anytime you are making some initiative, you you still have to be checking the feasibility of that particular strategy, given the alternative strategy that your rivals are also churning out. And that is the angle where he is also coming from, which is not a bad idea at all. What else? Any other?
Yes, I have a question to ask. Sorry, I don't understand.
Okay, go on.
Yes, most of the times when strategies are being formulated, if you look at the organogram of most organizations, the employees are not involved. It was during the implementation that they bring them in. Why is it like that? Most times the employees or the functional levels are not parts of the formulation process, but they are rather, when it comes to the implementation stages, they are
the key actors.
They are the key. Yeah. I just want to understand the reason why it's mostly done that way.
Okay. So normally, and by design, strategic management is the reserve of top and middle level managers. In fact, if there are no middle level managers, then the top level managers. And they've designed it not with any malice intended, but with the viewpoint that these top level managers also have their own constituents. And any input or contribution that they will be churning out during the deliberation process, leading to maybe the vision or the mission or whatever intended means that the company may be using to achieve their long-term imperatives. It should have been something that has gone through a thorough discourse with their constituents. But unfortunately, and I say this based on experience, unfortunately, it's these managers that are supposed to be representing their constituents up there assume for their constituents. And that is why during the implementation phase, it is important to manage it very well, because normally, by design, these top managers have structured the system, and later on we will come into organizational structure. They've structured the organization such that it always protects and favors them. And they always assume a position wherein they are perceived to be all-knowing, even though that may not be the case. So those are some of the reasons why they end up always voicing for their constituents, even though whatever they may be saying may not be a representation of their constituents. And that is why most organizations are now drifting to flatter structures instead of the tall structures. Or the traditional ones are the vertical, the vertical functional structure that cascades from the top to the bottom. And if you check it properly, you realize it's just few that are at the upper echelon that are involved in some of these strategic decisions without necessarily consulting the other actors that eventually may end up implementing it. And the recommendation is for, apart from the fact that there is the need for an open forum to be created for some of these key actors to be involved in the consulting in the strategic decision-making process, it is also important for them to bring a report that reflects the sentiments and the reflections of their constituents. But having said this, it is also important to know that if we decide to open it very wide to get the inputs and the perception of everyone before the final strategic outcome is developed, it will lead to decision paralysis. Because if you are dealing with a large enterprise that has thousands of employees, if not 10,000s, and you are allowing these various constituents some timelines before they finally bring a consolidated one for it to be considered on the strategic decision-making table, it will be quite elaborate and time-consuming, which may not augur well for the nature of the competition you may be facing. So it has its own plus and minus. The understanding and the perception is that those that occupy the top positions and that are given the nod to be taking part in some of these decisions are people that are well-versed in their areas of management, and they are also knowledgeable about the foresights and the intentions of their constituents. So whatever they voice out there should be a true reflection of what is happening on the ground. Okay. Emmanuel, are you fine?
Yeah, I'm fine, but I wanted to share my personal experience with what you just said.
Okay, you can go ahead.
When I was with Fabric Ghana Limited by then, we were having some challenges. And it was another company decided it's not going to sponsor the subsidiaries anymore. So we have an MD, as you are saying, the top hierarchy guys. We are the middle managers and before the down there. And when they changed the man and they brought in a white man, you see, the white man term an all-inclusive management. And mostly he involved the lower guys. And you'll be surprised, I mean, because they now understood the direction the business was going. And within 6 months, the business was turned around. So So I could see that when we involve everybody understand the direction of where we are going, the strategy from the formulation level to implementation to execution. I think everybody gets involved, and small ideas, it rather change the whole functioning than from top to bottom level. That's my
Yeah. And this also has a cultural undertone. It has a cultural undertone. I don't know if you've heard about Hofstede's cultural dimensions. Hofstede's cultural dimensions. So Jed Hofstede is one of the authorities that has come out with a cultural studies of multinational enterprises, which describes why individuals, for instance, from the African cultural context, will expect to behave some way, always trying to do things together. And if one of the inner circles is denigrated, that tends to affect the image of their entire universal sets, as opposed to other cultural contexts that tends to be more individualistic. So the typical one that you described has to do with their time horizon. And I believe the one that you are describing as having taken over, who eventually involved everyone, was coming from either US or somewhere Europe.
We're coming from the UK.
Very good. So they have what we call a short-term time horizon, and it's one of the dimensions of Hofstede's cultural norms. Short-term time horizon, which simply means that when it comes to management of performance and reward for work done, individuals that have a short-term time horizon orientation are the ones that's irrespective of the number of years an employee has been in the organization. The moment they see the employee as an asset, they reward the person to also feel that they are an asset. And that is the mentality that most of these tech companies are currently employing. And what's the implication of this is that they pay you based on your contribution to organizational success and not based on the PhD or some certification that you possess. But when you come to our non-Western African cultural context, such as Ghana, and that normally permeates throughout Africa and other non-Western African Asian contexts, what happens is that we have what we call a long-term time horizon. So individuals get rewarded based on their longevity in organization and based on their, there is a word for it, based on their longevity and like how long you've been in the organization. So that is how come when you go into some of our organizations and you are within a year or two, you are demonstrating exceptionally excellent performance, but they will tell you, but you it's a queue here. You came to meet your seniors and all of a sudden you want to be promoted to what position? Okay, so we are interested, as far as our cultural context is concerned, we are interested in the long-term time horizon, indicating that your reward, that is the comment they normally give to teachers, that your reward is in heaven. So you can kill yourself here at the end of the day. It's just a peanut that you are going to get. But if it were to be a manager or a leader that has a short-term time horizon orientation, then such people will not even mind involving the grassroots members of the organization. And there is another Hofstede's cultural dimension that we call power distance. Power distance, which describes the gap that exists between superiors and subordinates in organizations across cultural contexts. So if you come to our African cultural context, and if you even look at our traditional system, how we treat our kings, how we treat elders, how we are expected to greet. In fact, in Ghana, if you are communicating with an elderly person and you use your left hand, the interpretation will be that you are disrespectful. But those of you that have had some training in the European context will attest to the fact that if you raise up your hand in the classroom with your left hand, the lecturer will still call you out. So that borders on power distance. How we treat our chiefs. When you are entering a chief's palace, you are expected to, in some situations, right, you have to remove your slippers or your shoes. And if you are a female, there is a way you have to bow. If you are a male too, there is a way you have to treat yourself and carry yourself. Just to show that there is a gap between you and that elderly or leader that you've met in that community. And the same sentiments are transferred to the world of work whenever superiors and subordinates are interacting. So the expectation is that when you see your boss, you are supposed to quickly go and collect their bag. And then you be following them. Apart from that, when even you are having a decent conversation, then as soon as your boss enters, then all of a sudden the place becomes very, very, very odd. No one will be uttering a particular word. And that borders on our power distance. The reason why your previous supervisors who were Africans or Ghanaians were not trying to involve the operational managers and the other members of the organization involved in it is that culturally, anytime they sit down with subordinates to have a discussion, to deliberate on something that they perceive to be beyond their pay grade, they feel they are losing a portion of their power to these subordinates. And unfortunately, this has a devastating effect with the way our mindsets have been collectively programmed. So sometimes we may be complaining now, but when we get the position, because of how culturally our mind has been collectively programmed, we will end up perpetuating the same thing that we were complaining about. So it is easier to analyze it theoretically like this and also point it out when you are doing organizational development diagnosis. But when it comes to the management aspect, it is not something that is changed over time because we are talking about an entrenched cultural mindsets which people have grown up with from their childhood until wherever they are now. So raising consciousness and drawing their attention to some of these things through organizational interventions will also let them know other superior strategies that they could have used to prevent resistance and also create buy-in ideology right from the outset. I don't know if I'm talking too much or I'm not even answering your question. Is your question answered?
Yeah. So,
So it has a cultural undertone. And that is why these days and age, particularly the multinational enterprises where you have a lot of international, you have a lot of experts working with local nationals, and they bring in a multiculturalist or somebody that understands some of these cultural undertones to also be facilitate the management of some of these changes that they may want to institutionalize. Okay. Any other question? So still, what other factor or force? Gilbert. Okay, Gilbert, you can go on.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to chip in something regarding the cultural aspect you made mention of.
Yes, okay, go on.
A typical example I experienced. I work with a multinational company that had its expatriate staffs based in Ghana. And like the way Ghana, we eulogize our leaders, especially those in management positions. What happened was that we had a canteen that we all go to the canteen together. Both directors and middle level managers and let's say shop floor members all sit on the same table and have lunch. But when you look at those of our Ghanaians who were even below middle level management, they were calling for their meals to be served at their offices.
That is very typical.
Trying to look down upon others, while a whole director himself, who is a foreigner, will go for his meal. After eating, he will send the plate to the pantry to be washed. But our Ghanaian counterparts will send people with a basket and an apron to cover their food, take it to the office. After that, they send people to take it to the pantry. So this cultural diversity also plays a factor.
Yes, it plays a huge role. I remember very well when I was doing my master's in Norway. So in Ghana, whenever you are calling your lecturer, you have to be mindful about the title of your lecturer. So if your lecturer is a professor, you don't make a mistake to say sir or to say doctor, because that would be an interpretation that you have reduced their status or power in the class. And so it was the same mental state that we took to Norway, me and my other African Ghanaian counterparts that were there. Anytime we were calling our lecturers, we always premise it with their their title. But strange enough to us, they were always reminding us to just call them by their first names. And for the first 3 months or so, we struggled to adjust. Because this was a sharp transition from a cultural context where we don't play with titles. In fact, those days in Legon, I know some students who had to reset papers just because they unknowingly, a man had obtained a doctorate degree, and the news on campus was that the way he struggled, the number of years that he used to finish it, it wasn't easy. And some of these titles, so when you are working, it's not written on your forehead or on the crest for you. So the student did not know, and he went by the normal Mr. So and so. And that became Wahala that day. So we tend to bring some of these cultural programmings in our mind to the world of work, such that if your cultural orientation is from a collectivistic cultural context like Ghana, then the African cultural orientations is what will be reified as the norm over there. And whenever another person takes over, and the person is also having a Western cultural context orientation, that person is also going to experience a lot of cultural shocks, because some of the things that he may consider to be weird or not normal in their cultural context, those are the things that the Ghanaian colleague managers will be helping him to adapt to. So I know there was one guy, the previous manager that he was working under was paying him more or less like, if you compare it to his colleagues that were in other subsidiaries working, it was more or less like not anything to write home about, but comparatively to his Ghanaian counterparts that were working in other Ghanaian organizations, it wasn't that bad. Only for an Australian to take over, experience the guy's competencies and his contribution to the volume of sales that they were recording, then quickly this Australian man pegged it with the international counterparts rates. And that became a wahala in the organization, because the other Ghanaian managers felt that the Australian was now paying the Ghanaian too much, and the Ghanaian is going to misuse it. You can just imagine. So sometimes our cultural orientations inform how some of these sentiments are addressed. And that makes it necessary for courses like cross-cultural studies, international business studies, and international HR to become very much relevant in the current setup of organizations that we are having. Because when you scan your environment, particularly your workforce, you will realize that you are not only dealing with local nationals, but you may be having internationals in there, which they will all be required to adequately adapt or integrate into the culture where they find themselves, so that there wouldn't be any sort of cultural crashes. All right. Any other submission or contribution? Mentioned one of the key ingredients that is supposed to be considered when it comes to strategy, implementation, and execution include the policies of the organization. The policies of the organization. Generally speaking, policies. Now, before I come to the policies, you first of all need to get annual objectives, because these annual objectives are going to serve as the yardstick or the standards that have been appropriated from the long-term objectives, which are expected to be achieved within one calendar year. And it is these annual objectives that will facilitate the allocation and prioritization of resources, particularly in terms of the time that will be apportioned to individuals and departments to carry out their responsibilities, the money and personnel that will equally be aligned to the objectives will be clearer when annual objectives are also teased out. And it also serves as the benchmark to assess the favorability of managerial performance or otherwise. And that also serves to gauge the purview with which the organization is progressing towards the attainment of their long-term objectives. So there is the need to have your annual objectives teased out, and that will guide the nitty-gritties that should take a center stage in the implementation of the strategy. Then you must also get policies or guidelines that will support and encourage towards the pursuit of the goals of the organization. You must also get policies. And these policies must be normally contingent on what will work well for the organization. And these policies may border on attendance, it may border on performance, it may border on the use of organizational resources, be it internet or car or whatever. And the essence of having these policies is to set the permissive zone of variation. That is, it will set the boundaries that will indicate that a particular behavioral outcome will be rewarded or entertained, while certain behavioral outcomes will be sanctioned. So as much as possible, policies and their programs must also be available. Then the resources, as one of you mentioned, they must also be well thought through in terms of their financial through to the human resources. And in the human resources, emphasis should be on the right quality and quantity of human resources at the right time, at the right place, in a cost-effective manner. Because if you compromise quality for quantity, at the end of the day, you'll be having a lot of redundant people in the system, wherein there will be so much hands chasing few jobs. Now, if you have the right quality and quantity, and they are also not assigned at the right places which matches their competencies or skill sets, then it will be like having square pegs in round holes, which will not augur well for the organization. And under such circumstances, you will not get the best out of this workforce. And you can think of it as a situation where you place a fish on a tree and you expect it to excel. Even though the fish aptitude may suggest that they are cut out for the job. So as much as possible, matching the right qualities and quantities of human resources at the right place, and the timing should be apt. Then the issue of the structure that will support the strategy implementation should be thoroughly interrogated. And this is important because organizational structure that hitherto was available prior to the new strategic direction the company may be taking may not be in alignment. So as much as possible, it is important to consider whether the existing structure aligns with the strategy that is being championed, or there is the need for some of the divisions or some of the portions of the structure to be delayed, resulting in what we call right-sizing the organization or rationalizing the organization. And the question that normally arises is whether the structure should precede the strategy or the strategy should precede the structure. What do you think? The relationship between organizational structure and strategy, which one should come first and why? Hey, can I be heard? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Aha. So the relationship between organizational strategy and organizational structure, how are they related and which one must come first? Hey, my finance people.
Yeah, we are here. So the chart shows the structure. So the chart will come first.
Okay, so the chart,
yeah, chart will show, yeah, the chart will shows through the chart you can get the structure.
Oh no, I'm talking about the structure and the strategy you are implementing. So which one should dictate the other? Or which one should come first? Is it the organizational structure that should be adapted to fit the strategy we are implementing, or it is the strategy we are going to implement which should inform the engineering of the organizational structure? How do you marry the two?
The strategy will inform the structure because the strategy will show you, yeah, will inform your organizational structure because the strategy will inform you the way to go, and that will also inform how you put your structure in place to achieve your.
All right, thank you very much. So the idea is that you may already have a thriving structure in place, but anytime you are going to implement a strategy, there is the need for you to match the two to see whether the existing structure will support the strategy, or there is the need for you to make some adjustments or adaptations for the structure to be more supportive of the strategy. The bottom line is that it is within the strategy that the key players are going to act to implement and pursue the structure. So if the structure is going west and the strategy is also requiring it to go north, then you can imagine the role confusion and role conflict that may be emanating. So as much as possible, you have to be ready to match the two and see an alignment before you proceed. And then they say symptoms of ineffective organizational structure.
Hello, sir.
These ones are, yeah, hello.
So, yes. In fact, ideally, to my view, I suggest that the strategy should rather come first because it is the strategy which defines the direction
of the organization.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's what docs.
But Also, maybe the mind was not there. The bottom line is that when it comes to practice, you always have to assume a contingent approach to see what is happening in your environment, whether the strategy that you have in place will fit into the structure that has been erected. And if there is a misalignment, then you quickly adjust the structure to support the implementation or the pursuit of the strategy. But mind you, even from the outset where we are forging the mission, vision, the objectives and all that, indirectly, efforts are also made to consider the existing structure that is in place. So if the final outcome requires further adjustments, that is why we say the strategic management process is an iterative process requiring further revisions to be made until you come to a point where you feel you are achieving the desired results that you set forth to achieve. Okay, so on our screen are some symptoms of ineffective organizational structure. These ones, they are straightforward. Anna, these ones, they are straightforward.
Yes, yes.
These ones, it's like, but you ponder through it. I may have to touch on. Okay. And there are some, I have also put together some types of structures that organizations may adopt to champion their strategy implementation, ranging from the functional structures, which is the classical ones, through the divisional structure and then the matrix structure. Are you familiar with these ones already? The types of the structure? Are you familiar with it already? Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Are you familiar with it already? So what is the functional structure or the vertical functional structure? What is it all about? Yes, Jane. Hello, Jane. You can talk now. Or your microphone mistakenly came on. Who can help us? What is the vertical functional structure?
Can we say they are the implementers? Or
Okay.
Those who implement, or they roll out the strategy, or they champion the strategy that are put in place.
They champion the implementation of the strategy.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
the implementation.
Okay, so the vertical functional structure normally typify the locus that the operators of an organizational strategy normally reside. And beyond that, it projects the organogram of an organization by labeling the key functional areas that take a center stage in the organizational activities. So depending on the organogram we are dealing with, you may have some of these specific functional structures ranging from HR, ranging from production to management information system. And the expectation is that when it comes to the implementation, each of these functional units are expected to be championing their respective goals, which are all derived from the ultimate goal of the organization. And so they must have the production unit must have its own annual plans. Marketing department must also have its own annual plan and marketing strategy. The same across these departments. The challenge with the vertical functional structure is that it utilizes the traditional bureaucratic approach to implementation of a given strategy, which means that sometimes the operational manager will be closer to the ground and may want to rapidly take a particular decision and later on communicate it to his or her superiors. But this structure will require that you get clearance before you proceed. Other than that, if it backfires, then you are going to be penalized. But if it is successful, then your superior will eventually go and take the credits. And that is one danger associated with this Weberian, Max Weber's typology of organizational structure. So this is how it may look like. And these are the advantages and disadvantages. Then there is a divisional structure. A divisional structure. So unlike the vertical functional structure, which is designed around the entire product or service of the organization, given its functional areas of operation and where the implementers are located. The divisional structure is organized around the various product lines or portfolios of the organization, which means that if you are championing a particular strategy for an organization that has different product lines, an organization that is perhaps using a BCG matrix, then it requires them to also have in place a divisional structure so that one of the divisions will be centering on one is centering on the alcoholic beverages, one is centering on the mineral water, and another is also centering on the energy drink. The advantage of this divisional structure to the implementation of a given strategy is that it allows for delegation of authority. It allows for delegation of authority. If you look at what is happening over here, right? What is happening over here? A decision that's in a normal vertical functional structure would have required the intervention of the president for maybe the research and development manager to proceed. Under a divisional structure, the same provision can be easily addressed by the divisional head, which leaves out the president or the CEO from all the various loops to be bombarded with some situations that those that are closer to the ground can easily handle. So for that reason, we say it promotes delegation of authority and also empowers individuals to be more autonomous across the divisions. And it also entertains or encourages the additions of different product lines onto the parent company's operation, thereby improving the stream of income for the company. Unlike in the vertical functional structure, which does not entertain that sort of activity. So others may even say it even encourages healthy competition across the divisions. And when there is a healthy competition, they are eventually all going to make huge volumes of sales and make profits for the parent company. But that can equally be quite a challenge to navigate because it can lead to unhealthy competition among themselves. So the competition among divisions can become so intense that it will eventually become dysfunctional, and they will not be looking at it as if it is the same parent company that they are all trying to help. And beside that, it can be costly to maintain because look at this. You have functional critical functional areas scattered across each division. So we have research and development in Division 1, research and development in Division 2, and that's in Division 3. You have manufacturing, marketing, and finance across each of the divisions. And that makes practical sense because the processes that one goes through to develop an electronic product, a biotechnology product, or a customer-related product is different. However, their maintenance can be very, very costly, especially when one of them is not pulling their weight to make ends meet. So those are some of the advantages and disadvantages. Then there is the matrix structure. The matrix structure is also normally employed when, in fact, it is normally endorsed by multinational enterprises that spread their production activities across the length and breadth of the globe to seize or capitalize on economies of scales, cheap labor, and cheap raw materials. So what happens is that whereas an individual may be reporting vertically to a supervisor. So if you look at this particular vertical lines, this person may be reporting vertically to a vice president finance in, let's say, China, but horizontally to a product manager in South Africa, the same person. And this violates the dual chain of command principle. And what is this dual chain of command principle? Under normal circumstances, the expectation is that at any point in time, every individual is expected to be reporting to one supervisor, but not two or more supervisors. But the nature and the business of some of these multinational enterprises is such that in order for them to maintain the same level of standard or control over the quality of their products and services, it becomes imperative for them to be working in teams or in clusters wherein at some point in time, one individual will end up reporting to multiple superiors simultaneously, which, as I indicated, violates the rules surrounding chain of command principle. But having said this, it works very well for them because they are able to monitor what is happening at the parent company and also what is happening at their subsidiaries in order to maintain the same level of standardization and coordination that they are looking out for. And so the unique thing about this matrix structure is that it has dual lines of authority. It has dual lines of authority. At any given point in time, an individual is reporting to two superiors or two leaders at a go. So at the vertical level, they are reporting to one person. At the horizontal level, they are reporting to another superior, making them have two supervisors at the same point in time to maintain coordination and control. So the major challenge or disadvantage that is associated with the matrix structure is that it requires, it can be, the first one is that it is very much costly to maintain because you end up having most of the responsibilities or duties of the organizations scattered and being maintained across not only the parents, where the parent company is destinated, but across all the subsidiaries as well. And the violation of the unity of command principle can sometimes bring role confusion because when there is a crash of requests from these two superiors, it becomes confusing to know which one to prioritize on. And so they will all be pulling their efforts to make sure you address theirs in time before you attend to the other ones. Those are some of the challenges that can that may crop up. And depending on the cultural context of your supervisors, it may also end up creating challenges for not only the superiors that are designated elsewhere, but the subordinates that are also reporting to them, particularly if they do not have the same alignment of cultural orientations. And that can be quite difficult managing because in one end, your immediate supervisor, who you are responding vertically to, will be okay with certain aspects of the activities and how you may be conducting yourself, whilst the horizontal one, who has a different cultural orientation, may not be able to appreciate some of your behavioral tendencies.
Sir.
Yes, hello.
Yeah, we spoke about some confusions about the first organogram issue. I wanted to ask to kill that confusion. That's why is it the same reason why? Is it not the same reason why they give KPIs to each function so that to curtail or to solve or to minimize those confusion? I'm talking about the key performance indicators that they give when
yes. So are you referring to this matrix one or the vertical functional one?
The vertical functional one.
Yes. The divisional one.
The division, yes. Because most of the times to kill that confusion that you are talking about.
The unhealthy competition.
Yes, most of the times bring that, yes. So that's why they give KPIs to an individual so that everybody knows what is expected of
to be doing.
Yeah, so that to kill that confusion. I'm just asking if that's why they give those KPIs to kill that unhealthy competition.
For the KPIs there, it is whether there is a healthy or an unhealthy competition, you will still require the KPIs to be assessed whether you are working well or not. But the extent to which these KPIs will be raised is what may eventually create a dysfunctional competition among them. And what that means is that instead of all of them seeing themselves as being in working for the same end, it will almost always be like that two-headed creature which we all read in we all read, is it in our primary school? There was a two-headed creature that they all had a single stomach. But at the end of the day, they were all competing for the food to pass through their throat before it gets to the stomach. So if at the end of the day, one of the divisions is always emerging and others are always also struggling, and that is not managed properly, it may create some sort of dysfunctional relationship among them. And that is what normally occurs when you are running some of these divisional structures. In fact, look at it from the banking sector. So what happens is that those that are normally situated within the cities and the business districts, you realize that the amount of revenue and target they are able to reach within a short period of time cannot be compared to those that are found in the transitory and remote locations of the country. And because some of these targets are also tied with bonuses and other incentives, it's sort of positioned some of the branches at a disadvantaged position, because it's not your doing that you are found at Anomabu or Sopon. And it is also not the doing of those that are found at Makola, wherein just Zabzubu Tatalik alone can come and make a deposit. And that becomes a whole minimum capital requirement for the entire bank to flourish. So those are some of the realities that are there whenever we are discussing their strengths and their weaknesses.
Okay.
All right. Beyond these things, it is expected that no matter how you prepare employees, and no matter how you gather the necessary resources, no matter how the organization is prepared for the implementation, there is the likelihood that some sort of resistance may crop up, particularly from a cortex that perhaps their temperament or their personality is the traditional type, which does not want to witness any transformation or changes being institutionalized. So as much as possible, one of the preparatory work that is also required to prepare managers ready enough for some of these possible eventualities of resistance to change is to equip them on how to manage some of these changes. And the avenues that they may utilize includes force change strategy, which is more or less like the dictatorial approach or the military approach, wherein the corridors of power issue orders and enforce it by requiring all the followers to align with it in order to achieve the change that they are looking out for. So when we usually use the force change strategy to achieve compliance and also to maintain authority, it is normally employed when there is the need for a quick action to be taken. And if these quick actions are not taken, it can put the organization in negative disrepute. And as such circumstance, you may entertain the force change approach. So, although it is quick to implement and the instructions that comes with some of these force change strategy is clear and unambiguous, a major challenge is that it may intensify the level of resistance or resentment that is currently available in the organization. So it has to be approached with higher level of caution. Only when it is the last resort, that is where you may try to go use it as one of their go-to options. And when you employ force change strategy, some of the implementers and the followers of the implementers may lose trust in the management, and their level of morale and commitment will also dwindle, in the sense that the force change strategy does not appeal to their reason. It does not appeal to their level of understanding, but it just expects them to do as it's commanded. Then there is the educative change strategy. Educative change strategy, which strives to bring a change in the organization by presenting the information to appeal to the conscience and the logic of the members in order for them to buy into it and see the need for why the strategy is necessary. So we normally employ it when there is a perception that the resistance to the change is coming from lack of clarity or understanding, or there is a lot of misconception, a lot of misinformation about the supposed change that the strategy is going to bring. And when this is used, it encourages and nurtures transparency or level of involvement in the organization. Then there is self-interest change strategy, the self-interest change strategy, which also attempts to convince individuals. It tries to convince individuals that the supposed change that is going to be institutionalized is in the interest of the persons that are going to act on them. So what happens is that they sort of sell it to the employees that we are doing all these changes because of your own well-being. And once they're able to change as their own initiative or their own interests, then there is also the need for them to prepare managers ahead of time to be in a position to manage conflict. Because just as in our nuclear families, we have individuals with different positions and interests. Within the world of work, particularly in our formal organizations, there is always parties or groups that will have different opinions, interests, or values. And whenever there are disagreements between two or more parties, conflict is bound to happen. And so when managers are equipped to be in a position to manage conflict appropriately, it will equip them ready enough to navigate some of these challenges as and when there are clash of ideas, opinions, or perceptions. Are there any questions? And continue, God willing, next week. Were we supposed to have a quiz today? Was that the agreement?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Okay. Yes. I know right after this class, you have another class. So what I'll do is that, when are you finishing your last class?
Next week, please.
No, I mean, when are you finishing your last class today?
No class for us
We are done
today.
for today, Doc.
So you are done for today.
Yes,
Then
please.
I will open the portal for you in about 2 hours time, if that is okay, so that you can take part in the quiz. That will be the
Very
quiz
well,
too.
Doc.
It will
Okay.
be on the LMS. So please be following the notices that your class reps will be bringing to your corridors. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.
Are we meeting you next week?
Yes, next week we are meeting.
Face to face.
Face to face.
Yes, face to face.
Okay.
Yeah. And that is when we will be having our presentation. So please be putting your ideas together. At least you should have about you'll be given 10 to 15 minutes within which to do your presentation.
Okay.
And it can be on a PowerPoint slides, nicely prepared and well coordinated during the presentation. So I look forward to seeing all of you, God willing, next week.
Very well.
Sir. God be with
Okay,
you.
bye-bye.